This is the last of the exercises that you're going to have to do in MindTap because they don't have any exercises at this point. They may develop in the future for the next couple of chapters, but for now, they don't have any exercises for the next few chapters. So all you got to deal with in there is the exams, or they call them tests. So we want to create a class. It's a motorcycle class. Now, this class they've already created, or I should say, this code they've already created will reference or instantiate that class that we're going to create. And by instantiating it, what that means is somebody has created some code and they've given it a name. And in this example, they've given it the name motorcycle. Now, we need to create a clone, if you will, of that motorcycle class. So we first have to connect to it. So we say from motorcycle, import motorcycle. So now we have that class accessible to us. It's bound in a way to our code. The next step is we need to create an instance of that class. So we're going to create our own motorcycle object. An instance of a class is an object. So in line 8 and 9, they have created code that creates two objects. The first object is called motorcycle 1. The second object is called motorcycle 2. Let's deal with just the first one for now. So motorcycle 1 is the name, and it is an instance of the motorcycle class, and this code right here, that what appears to be a call to a function, and it really is, it's a constructor that will actually create that object for us. Now, that class, to build it or to construct it, create an instance of it, if you will, requires 3 arguments. Now, those 3 arguments are max speed, speed, and does it have a sidecar? Yes or no, true or false. So here's the maximum speed the motorcycle can go. Here's how fast you're going. And here is, does it have a sidecar? Yes or no. So by calling this function the way that we've created an instance of that class. So everything that will exist in this motorcycle.py class will also exist in our motorcycle 1 object. And the same holds true for this motorcycle 2 object. The only difference between them being whatever we pass to them when we actually construct them or we create the initial instance of it. Aside from instantiation, creating the object twice, we also call an accelerate function that is part of that class, and we pass it a value. Now, you see that they're yellow in this IDE. What that means is this is a component within the object itself, or initially it's a component of the class that we are cloning. I like using that word, cloning. So when we go create this, and I'll show you here, there's nothing in there. We're going to have to create the class. We're going to have to create the constructor, and we're going to have to create a accelerate function. Okay? We also see that there's a speed variable. All right. And there's a sidecar variable. Well, sidecar's here. That's true or false. Speed was the middle one, and max speed is the first one. So we have a good idea of what we've got to build that this code can actually use. So let's come over here to our motorcycle.py. Now we're going to start out with creating the class, and the name is motorcycle. That has to match exactly to that line of code that we saw here. If for whatever reason your name does not match this name, you're not connecting the two together, and it's not going to work. So it's big M in the front and all lowercase from there on. And this class, we need to pass it object. We'll come down, we've got the colon there. We'll come down to the next line. Let's go ahead and set up a function to initialize this thing. A couple of underscores, INIT, a couple more underscores, open and close parentheses, and then we'll have our colon. Now, this initializer, we think back to what we saw here. When we actually construct this, we've got to pass 3 values. Max speed, speed, and the third one was sidecar. So we'll come back over, and we actually have 4 things we need to put in here. The first is self. We always do that because that's where that name comes in, where we've named that object. The next one, let's call it max speed. Now these variable names only exist within this function. Call the next one speed, and the last one sidecar. Okay, so there's our 4 things. 3 of them are real tangible values. The other one, it's implicit. Okay, so we'll come down and self dot, think of the things we saw. Sidecar equals, and oops, not celled, it's self. And next line we'll have self dot max speed. We'll set that to a value. And then the last one was self dot speed. We'll set that to a value. And what values are we going to set these to? Well, what's being passed in. And when you see here, sidecar is what we received it into. That's the only place it exists, is those 2 references. Comes in, we use it, we take that value, and we put it in this variable that can now be used outside of this function. So the next one will be max spd, and the third one is spd. So that's our constructor. That worked fairly well for us, and that brought in the values, set this thing up. Now we've got to look at what classes do we need. I should say, what functions do we need? Let's come down and look and see. So we have an accelerate function. And that's it. That's the only thing we've got to create, is an accelerate function. So let's say def accelerate, and it receives 1 value. Now, what's that 1 value? That 1 value, when we called it, that's right here. Now, that's a speed. It's actually an increase in speed. Okay? It's an increase in speed, and down here, come down, We check to see is it has a sidecar, yes or no. Sidecar, yes or no. And in our accelerate, we need to put a conditional in there. So let's say speed comes in. We'll use that same SPD that we used above. And in our accelerate, it's not just speed. We also have to pass itself. Come back down. And let's put a conditional in there. If self.speed is greater than self.max speed, and it's got to be a big S in there, or, so what this means is if the current speed is greater than the maximum speed, meaning this is higher than this when it was actually created, then we've got a problem. This thing's going too fast. Or our other condition will be, I don't want to close that yet. Our other condition will be SPD plus self.speed. So the increase coupled together with the current speed is greater than self.max speed. So essentially we're saying if this increase, if you add whatever that increase is to the current speed, if that exceeds the maximum speed, I'm sorry, you can't go that fast. So if that condition is true, then we want to say print and we'll go ahead and put quotes. This motorcycle cannot go that fast. I don't need a period. I don't have to close that out any special way. And if that is a valid case, all right, you're trying to go too fast. If it's not, if that's not too fast, then we're going to set the new speed. Self.speed equals self.speed plus speed. And that's the increase. Okay, so let's come test this thing, or we'll go ahead and run it, see what it does. So we go run it. Motorcycle cannot go that fast. The current speed of the motorcycle is 65.0. The current speed of the motorcycle 2 is 80. So here's the current speed of the first one. We tried to increase it 30. That would be 95. That exceeds the 90 max. So this is correct. It kept it at 65. On motorcycle 2, that object received 60. The max is 85. If they increase 20, that's only 80, which is within the max. So we went ahead and increased it to 80. So it went and checked to see if it has a sidecar or not. If motorcycle 1.sidecar. If the value there is true. Okay, motorcycle 1 received a true value. And we put that value in sidecar. So we can reference that variable anywhere within our object because that became part of the object. Okay, so let's test this thing, see what MindTap thinks of it, or Cody. Cody says we got 3 of 4. Let's see what we've got wrong. Failed speed exceeded. This motorcycle cannot go that fast. Right there, I spelled motorcycle in my output wrong. These things happen. So all I've got to do is come back over. CYCLE. And let's test it again. Cody says I got 404 that time. So it wasn't that big a deal, but if we know how this code's working, we know where to go to fix whatever issues may exist. Okay? So I appreciate your time, and I'll see you in the next video.